now. Okay, fantastic. So welcome everybody. This is the first call of its kind, and this idea kind of came about from interactions we've been having with several players looking to use Helm and Kubernetes as a means of deploying OpenStack onto Kubernetes. So what this kind of idea, there's been conversations in the Helm Slack channel, and I have Matt Butcher, who's also from Deis and leads the Helm development effort and the Helm project on this call as well. And Matt can kind of, I can have him introduce himself in a minute. But the idea was that we wanted to understand what people are doing with Helm in this context, and if there's any, blockers that we can help get unblocked, or standard paths forward to help make the experience a little bit better. From our perspective, OpenStack is a great use case for Helm, and we'd love to see how far we can push Helm with a complex use case such as OpenStack. So, we're seeing it as a learning opportunity for the Helm project and Kubernetes in general. But obviously there will be some sharp edges, which we're trying to kind of get the conversation going between parties who are trying to do this thing and see if we can all move together somehow and make this a great experience for all. With that, I kind of sent out 3 agenda items for what I was hoping to get through in this first hour, and I wanted to solicit feedback at the end if everybody thought this was a useful piece of information and or time. So just to go through agenda, I wanted everybody to go through and do just a quick round of introductions for those who don't know each other. And we wanted just to see how they're currently using Helm to manage OpenStack deployments. And if there's anything that they can share, statuses, repos, efforts, and how far along they are in this process, I think that'd be good context for everyone. Then kind of just we wanted to get any hard points or any blockers that the Helm team or the Helm project could help provide. And I'm guessing there's going to be a Venn diagram of things that are complex across all these endeavors. So we want to see if we can try and figure out how to get those on paper and prioritize and figure out if they are a good fit for Helm to solve as well. And then just at the end of it, just figure out if we want to get a cadence going here or whether there's another forum that this conversation needs to be had in. Is everybody okay with that?
Yep, that works, Lockie.
Cool.
Yeah, it sounds like a good agenda to me as well.
Cool. So I am here from the perspective, so my name's Lockie, I'm with Deis. I'm here from the perspective of I'm a chart maintainer of the Kubernetes charts repo, and I bring some experience to building Helm charts. And that's really my interest is helping you get your chart problems sorted out, and whether this becomes something that's upstream, great. If not, that's fine too. I'll kick it to Brandon, given that I know you, Brandon.
Yeah. So, I think a lot of people know each other on the call, but for the sake of those who are watching the recording and anybody who doesn't know, I'm with AT&T. I work with Alan and Steve. I think that's all who's on this call, but we've actually, a little bit of background very quick. We went to the previous OpenStack Summit and mentioned in Barcelona the use of Helm, and that was not being used at the time. I felt that Helm was close and had a few gaps that could be overcome with some workaround. And so that, I think that's kind of how it got introduced to Cola. I'm not sure if he has here, but anyways, and then we kind of started a POC on the side as well, because internally we talked about the use of this and really wanted to show the power of using Helm and Kubernetes, and really used as an opportunity for us to even learn Helm and learn how Helm kind of organizes things and how deep into the config maps you can go and what the opportunities are there. So that's it.
So we should probably go, like there's a participants list I see here on Zoom. Maybe we should just go down the list so people can introduce themselves.
I think that's fair.
Okay. So I don't know if everybody has the same participant list, but the next one I see is a number 491712. Is that what everybody else sees?
Mine's different.
Okay.
Mine's different.
I think they're
That's probably me.
except that your name is always on the top.
Okay. Well, how about Latchy? You can go down the list maybe and
Yeah,
call
sure.
us.
Sure.
Yeah, cool.
Okay. So whoever is on that 491 call, if whoever's dialed in from a phone, if they'd like to just.
Yeah, hey, Lucky, that's probably me, Michael Schmidt from SAP. I'm currently in a train, so my sound is really bad, but I'll be done in 15 minutes. So if I can go last, that would be cool.
No problems at all. Thanks, Michael. Adnan.
Hey everyone. So like Lucky, I'm one of the chart maintainers. So I'm kind of here mostly as a fly on the wall, just to see what comes out of this. But yeah, I have some experience building charts and can kind of lend some opinions there.
Adnan is Pridonius in Slack.
Oh yeah.
Yes, Pridonius. Fantastic. Alan Meadows.
Hey everyone. So I work with Brandon at AT&T and doing a lot of Helm stuff in order to build the first pass to the POC that we're doing to instantiate OpenStack, and our goals are a little bit wider than I think just installing OpenStack itself. I mean, really, at the end of the day, we want to containerize the whole AT&T control plane. It has 100 different geographical installations today, and it's going to be 300 in a little while. So this is kind of important for us to standardize on a tool that could actually handle the installation of a lot of different software products, OpenStack just being one. And I've been bugging Matt a lot on Helm for various different challenges that we've run into. And I think this is a great start at maybe building a list of those and trying to address them.
Fantastic. Thanks, Alan. Appreciate that. I have Inc Zero.
I think Inco will be much easier to pronounce. So hey,
Inco.
My name is Inco. My name is Michał. I'm a project technical lead of Cola. You can probably recognize me by my heavy Polish accent and ponytail in person. And well, that's me. I'm working with Intel, and I'm here as a representative of Cola community, pretty much one of few Cola people here.
Great to have you here. Thank you very much. Kevin Fox.
Yes, I work for Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, operator and a developer. So I've been contributing to the Cola Kubernetes project as a way to get an containerized OpenStack that us operators can use to maintain our system.
And are you K Fox in Slack?
Yeah.
Cool.
The real name to alias mapping. Thank you, Kevin. Matt Butcher.
Yeah, I'm Technosoclos in Slack. I'm the original project lead on Helm. And I should specify, sort of at one point we split Helm into two projects: the Kubernetes Helm and Kubernetes Charts. And Adnan and Lockie are both leads on the Charts one, and I'm a lead on the Helm core project. So we focus mainly on developing the feature set and the binaries that you guys use. So I'm here to make all your dreams come true. No, not really.
Can you please put your Santa hat back on, Matt?
Yeah.
We're all feeling lucky today. Thank you, Matt. Pete Burley.
Okay, I'm an independent developer who is quite new to Cola Kubernetes, where I was running OpenStack inside Kubernetes before, and so I'm just very keen to learn about Helm and how we can work together to try and package up OpenStack to make it easy to consume for all sizes of organizations.
Fantastic. Thank you, Pete. That came through in Britney Spears' voice for me. Don't know about everybody else. Brilliant. Yeah, so it works. S. Besverk. username.
Sergey?
Yeah, sorry about that. I was trying to unmute and it took a bit of effort. So, Sergey, I work for Cisco and I'm a contributor in Kula Kubernetes project. Basically working with the Kevin Fox on Kula Kubernetes. And I have SBSwerk nick on pretty much everywhere, IRC and on Slack. So.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sergey. Steve Wilkerson.
Hey guys, I work at AT&T. I'm part of Alan and Brandon's team working on the AIC Helm stuff, but also contributing to the Kula Kubernetes side as well. So I know there's a little bit of a difference between how we're using Helm on both of those, but looking to see, dive into a little deeper, see what Helm has to offer for both, whether it's a common solution or targeted for one or the other.
Fantastic. Thank you, Steve. And Stephen Dake.
Yeah, so I started the Kula project early on, about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that. It's been a long time. Handed off the reins to Mihao. Now we had a person working to lead Kula Kubernetes, and his work kind of pulled him off that. So I've been taking on responsibility of getting the core team going and started and warmed up. And I think that's been achieved. I think we've kind of achieved a critical mass now, and we're moving forward at a good pace.
Fantastic. I think that everybody's been through introductions. Thank you very much. Did I miss anybody?
Yeah, you missed me, Michael.
Michael,
I hope my phone is okay.
Yes, it's. I was intentionally missing you, only because you missed minutes. Are you in a good position to introduce now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So my name is Michael Schmidt. I'm here from SAP. You might know Andrew Betty or Fabian Ruff. That's the guys who usually lead our OpenStack Helm initiative. And what we are doing is we are entertaining a farm of OpenStacks, and we are building them up on Kubernetes on bare metal. And yeah, we try to build up a new OpenStack every 2 months or something. We have 3 of them productive right now, and we have everything in Helm. And that is not just OpenStack, but everything around what we need to keep the thing running, like all the monitoring tools, the logging. We have a DNS setup and our own custom components. I actually counted earlier, we have about 55 charts currently, and we are deploying this multiple times. And more often, like multiple times per day. We had 400 releases in our production system just today. So yeah, that's what we're doing. We have a team of around 20 people working on charts at the moment. We started in Barcelona, basically rebasing our own custom solution on Helm, and we met a few folks already there. And by now it's in full swing, and it's been quite good to us, and we are quite sold and doing everything with Helm now. That's the short intro.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michael. So this kind of leads into the open discussion piece of the agenda. So I wanted to use this time, feel free to call out any kind of blockers or things that people feel they need to discuss with regards to Helm. And you have obviously Matt here and myself and Adnan, where I'm making a list and checking it twice. Sorry, holiday jokes. And we'll see, how we can start collaborating on this together to unblock things. So I'll open up the floor and get out of the way. And if anybody kind of wants to pitch in of wish lists or things, issues that are out there that need eyes on them, shoot.
So I think the first thing is I wanted to thank you for releasing the latest release of Helm that unblocked our gates. That was huge for us, because if our gates are blocked, we can't do development. So
Plus
that's
one.
212, I believe. Is that right, Sergey? Yeah. Right. So that unblocked our gates, and if we can't keep our gates open, then we have to have non-voting gates, and that's a problem for us. So that's one thing I would keep in mind, is that if we can keep that the bug fixes coming to the point to where our gates are stable, that's very important to us. And Sergey probably has quite a bit of more detail, and also Kevin on kind of wish list items beyond that. But that's the one that I would really like to see going forward, if possible. I know that's a hard thing to ask because it all depends on your schedules and whatnot. So that's one thing I definitely like to see come out of this.
It was helpful, by the way, for you guys to let us know that was the globals fix, I think, that was causing that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very helpful for us to know when something like that is holding you guys up, because, as you know, we get so many feature requests. It's hard sometimes to pick apart somebody else for a minor
Sure.
thing.
So how should we have that dialogue? Just via Slack or some other technique?
Flagging it on the issue is easy, because then whoever is looking through the issue queue will understand. But just bringing it up in Slack is good too.
Okay.
Cool. So we got one more in that category too. So we merged in 212 into the gate yesterday and started trying to use the globals today, and ran into that default thing that I mentioned on Slack, where defaults with booleans don't seem to work as one would expect. So I think that one's going to hold us up too from kind of nailing down our Helm API.
Okay, yeah, and I opened a PR to update to the latest Sprig, which has a has key thing that you can run on values, and you can say has key, and it returns true if the key exists and false if the key doesn't.
Well, I still don't know how you'd use that to chain it together to pick out the first defined thing.
Yeah, okay, I'll go read through that again and see if I can.
Okay, thank you.
Sergey, you had a list of things that you were wanted to see.
Well, actually, with the 212, the major block has gone, which is great. And then what Kevin mentioned, and there was another request some time ago for being able to deploy a subchart, but at the same time use some parameters or values defined for a parent chart. I mean, we kind of reworked our architecture in the microservices where we work around it. So there, it became less urgent, but still it would be nice in the foreseeable future to have that feature integrated in Helm. In Helm.
Yeah, and that's one that the core team has talked about on several occasions. Well, I think we talked about it in the public meeting last week. So we are trying to figure out a solution. That one's just slow coming because it's a little more difficult than some of the others. But yeah, I understand the need for that one.
It's also the holidays.
Is this the open issues about being able to manage subcharts without a parent chart? This has been floating around.
Yeah, so you could pass the parent chart's values into the subchart, but without installing everything in the parent chart. So you can sort of selectively install, say, Keystone and Swift without installing, I don't know what another part is that actually could separate. But the idea would be you could have one master chart that had 8 different subcharts, and on one invocation you could say, I want to install 7 of the subcharts, but I want the master configuration to get passed into those 7 without having to add on. Well, right now the solution that almost everyone is using for that is adding on those enabled, disabled flags and then rippling those all the way down through all the subcharts, which I would be willing to bet is probably what you're doing now, right?
No, we took a little bit different
approach. That was a no different approach?
Sergey, why don't you answer that question since it sounded like you spoke up first?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we basically we separated in different folder structures, subcharts and the charts. Basically, in our terms, it's the microservices and the services, and then we have a tool that does all packaging depending on the configuration. So it's kind of it's a different way of achieving exactly what you described. Like,
we're doing something very similar.
Okay.
We broke them up into individual template packages, so you could launch those individually if you wanted to, and then make a service package that depends on a whole bunch of them if you just want to launch them all at once.
Yeah, okay. All of those are ways that I think are fairly valid until we figure out a better way of doing it in the tool itself.
I would be interested in hearing how you did that stuff, to be honest.
You mean you want more detail from Kevin?
From Alan.
Oh, from Alan. Okay.
So we have independent subcharts and similar to I have to verbally say this, SBESVERK, similar to how they're doing it, except for packaging things up, which is that's kind of mysterious. Each of the individual Helm charts are installable, but there's a tool to take an environmental config, a single environmental config that defines values for all of the subcharts. And that tool is run against the environmental config, which breaks them apart, and then the individual subcharts can be installed, but they're still linked in a way because that information is coming from a single source. So in other words, we're not leveraging Helm to do the injection of shared values. We're leveraging something up above that we had to write in order to do that as a stopgap until we can have something and Helm hopefully manages for us going down the road. Because we really want to avoid a parent chart to install services. We really want to keep them completely plug and play as much as you can with OpenStack.
So I think that's where Sergey's request for the sub-deploy comes in. So there's a way to deploy charts individually from the command line. So you can do something like Helm install OpenStack and with like a sub-deploy, and then you can specify the features of OpenStack you want to deploy. One of the things that OpenStack does is it's got about, right now we've got about 60 projects in the big tent, and we've got about 40 of them containerized. And we don't want to deploy all 40 in all cases. So in many cases, we may only want to deploy like 8 or 10 or something like that, sometimes only 6. So that's a big thing that we need. Now, if you look at what Michael Schmidt is working on, they deploy everything that they need, which works for SAP's case. It doesn't really work for kind of the general case of everybody using the Helm as a deployment tool.
From my perspective, that's very important because lots of the people I deal with, they're not terribly interested in having an OpenStack installation as such, but it's very specific services that they're looking for as a complement to Kubernetes primarily. Whether it's block storage or object storage or something like that, they're not wanting to do a Helm install OpenStack, and they're looking to do sort of an individual sub-project and possibly own even 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah, and that gets us to the other problem, and that's there is OpenStack and there is everything that OpenStack needs, like database, Ceph, and all that stuff. And it will be extremely elegant and nice to not, for us as a collab community, to not necessarily, support Ceph installation with Kubernetes, because Ceph people will be much, much better than we will ever be. So yeah, I mean, having like some more pluggability to both configure what we need to OpenStack and also be able to glue in all the infrastructure services around it would be extremely useful.
So I think one of the features I don't even think has had an issue brought up yet, and I don't really have a coherent ask for this, and that is and this really plays into this whole I want to mix and match things, and that's a better dependency management, because right now you either deploy a fully fixed stack which is ready to work together, or you don't use dependencies, which we don't use today, which is kind of sad because I really like dependencies. And so there's 2 things that's missing. One is, of course, if you try to leverage the same dependencies in 2 different subcharts and install them individually, it's going to want to reinstall the dependencies, and that blows up. So that's one that I think everyone is familiar with. And the second one is just making dependencies more sophisticated, more like the apt package manager, where dependencies can be satisfied by other charts. So for instance, I have a chart that requires that you have some sort of persistent volume store. I don't care what chart you're going to use to activate that, whether you use the Gluster FS chart or a Ceph chart or whatever, but you need to meet that dependency. And that's more of a tag-like dependency satisfying algorithm that can understand that I've got other charts installed and they satisfy this dependency, so I can go ahead and install this chart. That would really help drive this in the future, I think, this sort of mix and matching.
So, Kevin, would you mind kind of seeing, maybe expanding on that as to how it would relate to Cola Kubernetes? Because I think we're suffering the same problem as I see it with what Alan just mentioned.
Yeah, another thing in that similar vein would be some kind of dynamic dependencies. At very least, like being able to include all the subcharts that you might ever want, and then be able to optionally not launch some of them based on values. So the user says, I want a rabbit as part of my Nova deploy. It should use the embedded chart for that. Or if they say, no, I just want to use an external rabbit, then it should be able to ignore that chart.
So I would,
those kind of things.
It sounds like very, very much a similar sort of feature that Alan mentioned that is sort of needed. Now, I think, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, sorry. I would say one more thing on the Alan's. I mean, Alan has, this is a great idea. And I would say even to go even further, when we, for example, say we want persistent storage using Gluster, we also need to, the other installation pieces, like, for example, Nova, will also know that we have persistent storage. The storage is Gluster, and this is the configuration files that or options that needs to, and that requires us to, I mean, that allows us to connect to the Gluster that we have. So it's like even more intelligent.
I think when Matt finally writes this, well, the way that I imagine is, yeah. So it's like a service dependency, right? I'm depending upon a service, and something is satisfying it, and then hopefully Helm would be intelligent enough to pass you all the way down to what chart is satisfying that, and then you can dig into whatever details you need out of that, including extracting values and all of that kind of stuff at the end of the day.
Yeah, that will be very, I mean, this is super complex problem to solve, but that will be extremely
it is. That's a very sophisticated end sort of path that we're talking about there. But like the item that Kevin just mentioned, these are like, it could be phased approaches. It could be sort of dynamic dependencies starting out as a first phase, and then just tags to help you do service level dependencies, just to sanity check to make sure that someone has the user of the charts is assuring you that they have something installed that satisfies this requirement, and then you can get more sophisticated there at the end of the day. But I mean, any kind of modern package management system is an easy paradigm to follow for this.
So with Ansible, we took some approaches. I mean, we solved this problem kinda in Ansible, and we solved them by having like one single bunch of variables. This is how Ansible works. And for example, if we install RabbitMQ, it will populate the certain times of generate the certain variables. And then other services will just access the same set of variables. And for example, if you want to have external RabbitMQ, all you need to do is to A, disable RabbitMQ, and B, manually or semi-manually fill up the variable index and directory with the variables of the external RabbitMQ. In Kubernetes world, that could be, for example, config maps, right? Like we will create config maps with the chart will support, like I install MariaDB chart, and MariaDB will create number of config maps which are well documented and have all the configuration details needed. So the other charts could also access the same config maps. And if you want to have something completely external, all you need to do is to create just config maps. So I think that would kind of, that would be one approach to the problem.
From my perspective, quite a few of these projects are using a binary called Kubernetes entry point, which is either embedded inside the container or inside the pod that's being launched, which provides some sort of sense of situational awareness, whether a service or a job has been completed. And if some of that functionality could be moved into Helm, I think that would be a really good starting point for this, just sort of checking whether certain endpoints and services are available, which would probably be quite a significant, simple first step on the path.
I think that's a great idea, Pete. That's another one of those like mid steps, because there's, as anyone knows, we deal with this all the time with developers who are new to this. Discovering that there's a problem is very complex. It would be great if Helm could surface that right at the beginning, or tell you that it's waiting for something, because, frankly, at the end of the day, it's a little hard to dig into what's going on inside Kubernetes for some nascent developers on why something is stuck, or that an obvious dependency hasn't been met.
Yeah, one of the things, and maybe Matt can pitch in on this, is there was talk of a testing framework where you could actually say, I don't know, what constitutes this success of this thing, rather than just the resources hit Kubernetes. So, and that would be, Matt, can you comment on the status of that?
Yeah, that's slated for 2.2, which is January, February timeframe. And it will allow you to run a series of tests on the Helm install to make sure that it installed the way you anticipated. So that is some of what you guys are talking about. The other part about being able to run, basically at installer upgrade time, being able to verify that certain things are true about your cluster. A bunch of that is in development right now. Not everything that Kubernetes entry point does will be in there, but it'll be substantially more powerful than it is today. That will come in the 2.2, 2.3 maybe. It's still in its R&D phase right now, but that's something we want to add.
So just a quick question on your release schedules. Is it every 2 months or 3 months, or do you kind of make it up as you go along, or how does that work exactly?
It has been hypothetically about every 2 months. It's ending up being closer to every 6 weeks-ish.
Okay.
And mainly, we try and sketch out how quickly we can do things in a 2-month time frame with at least one sort of keynote feature, something we want to be able to talk about with the release. And then the rest tend to be minor features and bug fixes and things like that. And then if the keynote feature gets done fast enough, we will often ship the release early so we can move on to the next thing rather than holding it up for small issues.
Cool.
The 2.1 issue was a little bit crazy because we had the 2 keynote issues in very, very quickly, and then we were just timing it to go with Kubernetes 1.5. So that one came out a little earlier than we anticipated. But the 2.21, the official date for it is Valentine's Day. It's progressing pretty quickly, but the main feature for that is this testing feature. So basically, at the point at which that is done and well tested, that's probably when we'll roll out 2.2.
So I'll be able to send my wife flowers on the day that Helm is released.
That's right, yeah. Well, you can get Helm to send flowers in that release.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got a Helm chart that'll send flowers. One quick thing that kind of spurred an issue that I was interested in raising, and it may or may not be generic enough for this, but I've always wanted in complex charts where you have subcharts, I want the output of one to become the input of another. Is that something that sounds useful to this team? So you say, go get a rabbit, give me the URL, which today we're guessing what the URL is from the release name based on whatever service discovery gives you, or it's hard-coded if it's off cluster. But you say, go give me a rabbit Rabbit, and here's the URL, and here's how to access Rabbit, and then let's feed that into the next chart run as, you know, structured outputs and inputs that are programmatically readable.
Having some sort of workflow would be incredibly useful. Unfortunately, the example I can think of off the top of my head isn't OpenStack related, but I am trying to build a chart for free IPA, and having some sort of ability to set up free IPA servers and then get credentials I need for replicas would be incredibly useful. So I'm certain in the OpenStack context as well, that would help.
And I'm even thinking in the initial, I think that's great. It sounds similar. I think the notes, if the notes were formatted where I could say pass it in JSON out and just key val the damn thing, and they could be read in as inputs on your dash F of the next dependency. If you could structure outputs, you know, like cloud formation for want of a better thing, where you can say, these are the things that matter to me. They may just be kubectl commands, right? And running them, piping them into a JQ and grabbing something. But sometimes you want something to be an input of the next chart rather than hard coding it or, you know, deterministically hard coding it.
That's a really interesting idea. I think that could be helpful for Cola Kubernetes.
Yeah, that's very similar to how Heat does things too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm familiar with Heat. What's your take on that, Matt? Is that something that's, have you heard many things on that?
Actually, the first time it's been requested, so I need to look into it and kind of see what we can do. We had envisioned the ability to use some of the helper things as a way to say, hey, here's a thing that we want to keep passing around as key values. But this use case is a little more sophisticated than that. So my initial
Lachlan,
makes sense.
In the version of what you're talking about, would I basically define? Would I be defining things that Helm understands about the service, and the things that I want to publish about that chart to be able to go in and fetch? In other words, Helm obviously knows potentially the service names for things that are being created in that chart, and I want you to go to a particular URL on that service and get the response and parse it with this and give back this JSON type blob. Is that the direction where you're saying? And this is a common framework that's available in every chart, and you could ask any chart to expose its
yeah, I mean, that's kind of how Heat works. They have a param section, which is the inputs, which kind of are what values are in Helm. They also have an output section that the user or when you're nesting stacks, which are kind of the subchart idea, that the parent can access the outputs of the nested stack and then use them for its own purposes.
Yeah, and even just to tag on the back of that, Alan, in the first instance, I think just even having definable, programmable outputs. So if you could define what's important for somebody to know, I guess you can do this in notes.txt. But given that Helm knows what all the resources are and has access to them all, you may say, I want the IP address, I want the label, or I want the URL for this Elasticsearch. So if user B comes along, your nascent developer, and says, where the heck is that Elasticsearch? He can do a Helm status Elasticsearch, and you can say, here's the URL that you can connect to from your desktop. And, you know, you find the secret here, or, you know, whatever, some arbitrary thing that makes sense in the context of that. You could use it to
that seems like a prerequisite building block to doing that more sophisticated package management and sharing that we were talking about later on. So that seems pretty important.
Yeah, do that and then pass it programmatically and use it as an input.
Matt, I just want to make one thing clear. We don't want to make a bunch of feature requests and then you have developed the features and then we don't use them. So I think we need to be very clear on making sure that we make the right requests. We're talking about, basically we're brainstorming now about what would be helpful for us, but we don't really have a clear picture yet of what those things are in detail. So I don't know how to guide you until we get a little bit further down the road in terms of development. Maybe Alan has some ideas.
I think one thing too to consider is, we're talking about things that are nice, like in an ideal world where it would be perfect. And I think all these suggestions are great. This is exactly where we would want a tool like Helm to go. But if we're being honest, like where are we right now? How would the Helm developers suggest that we approach things currently where things are, so that way we can work and align towards what the future vision would be. And I think that goes to your point, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah, I think if we're going to take a step back from the 1,000-foot roadmap view, then I mean we've cloned a lot of the sort of template management stuff that SAP is doing in order to keep our repositories sane, because anyone who's worked with OpenStack knows that it's a config map wonderland. There's just config files all over the place, and to bring sanity to the situation, it's not been easy in Helm, and we've taken some of the patterns that SAP has for that management, because it's a little bit more clean. But I would just like to see Helm better able to natively manage that for those of us who have to deal with a large number of config maps, and B, config maps which actually require service restarts. It's not something that's native in Helm, and there's little tricks and tidbits that you can do, which we've now implemented in order to allow the config maps to result in actual service restarts. But I would just love to see Helm manage that for us, especially since I think Helm can do a better job. Like, for instance, what we're doing today is, you have to do these hashing routines and apply those as annotations and all of that sort of work. But it would be nice if I could just sort of pinpoint, by instructing Helm on what config maps are restartable or should trigger restarts and things like that when they're changed, and there'd be a better mechanism for that management. So I think pretty much 99% of our problems on a 2-day basis is all template related, and it's template management related, and it's template inclusion related. Like, Matt, I know I talked to you about subcharts being leveraged by parent charts, and then not being able to do a files.get because the namespace is kind of off, which means that was a blocking sort of issue there, and we had to take a different approach for how we're pulling in files from charts. But it's highly template related for us today.
I would also like to second that. It's Michael from SAP. We have exactly the same problems. It's all about the templates. And now that we're stuck on 2.02 and having the nice file get features with 2.1 on the horizon, it's even worse for us. But yeah, that's a big problem with the templating. And we are trying to solve it by actually moving that stuff out of Helm and putting it into what we call controllers. So actually having little applications who manage the configuration. And so we don't have to put that complexity into Helm and try to get it out. Because it also, for us, it's at least something like Nova needs to be reconfigured when we put in a new piece of hardware. And that just sucks if we have to change Helm charts and redeploy the whole system just because there's a new switch or a new password or something. So we're trying to move that out of the charts and have it like with a third-party resource or something managed directly from Kubernetes.
Yeah, I've seen a couple other large projects invest in doing controllers for some of that. For the config map remounting stuff, that's supposed to be getting fixed in Kubernetes upstream, but we found out about a week ago about another a controller that you can map config maps to resources and have it restart when the config maps update. So we've been looking at recommending that rather than building it into Helm, but we haven't made it too far on that. The thing is called, I'll think of it and drop it in.
flag.
Guys,
Yeah, it'd be great. It'd be interesting to hear that what that tool is.
guys, I just wanted to make a quick time check because we have about 10 minutes left. And my suggestion, I mean, Lachlan before asked if we should make this meeting on any cadence and repeat. I think the amount of stuff that we discussed actually and validates that we should actually meet with this quorum and maybe even broader quorum every now and then, just to to be able to have this kind of discussion, because in my opinion discussions were great about.
Yeah, I would second that. The only thing is I would recommend maybe not weekly, but maybe every other week. I think monthly would be not enough, but I think weekly would be too much. So does anybody else have thoughts on the time or the cadence that we would want to approach?
I think if we grab it now, it's going to be better than trying to grab it after the new year, at least for us. I don't know what your calendars look like, but once January, February starts rolling around, it's going to be really hard to find time on our calendars.
I think with this. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So go on, Pete. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think with the stage of the development that we're at, that makes total sense, because as we're shaping up what we're doing, we should make sure that it's aligned with the trajectory that Helm is planning on moving on, and so that we stay aligned with that, or come back or move into alignment if we're not currently there.
Yeah, also that would make easier job for us. I mean, so describe it. That's idea that I'm playing with. We haven't discussed it lately yet, but at some point we could discuss having sort of merging Cola Kubernetes and OpenStack charts in Kubernetes chart repository one way or another. Probably in a way, for example, that some sort of if Cola Kubernetes will be actually compatible with the way you guys would like charts to be done in Kubernetes/charts repository, we could make some sort of mirror of our code out there, one way or another. Anyway, I understand that this will require quite some, discussions and mutual alignment to figure out how to do it. And yeah, having like bi-weekly, I would say to Steven's point, bi-weekly meetings would be extremely helpful in that effort.
Yeah, so on the merging and the charts, I think for us that's down the road, just from looking at the code base. I don't see that happening immediately.
Oh no, totally. Pike.
Yeah.
Pike is next release of OpenStack, and right. I would target it I would make it a goal for Pike, and maybe start discussion right now to know what's happening and what needs to be done. But yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is we will need a lot of alignment to get this done, and meetings like that will be extremely helpful.
So I guess the question is, are we doing 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, or can people not do that at all? Maybe the best way to handle this, Lashley, is a doodle poll. That would be one suggestion, since it might be difficult to kind of gain consensus in this medium. Just a thought.
Yeah. So
people have other thoughts that might I'd be willing to listen.
Yeah, I mean, just a couple of things. I'm happy with a bi-weekly cadence. The long-term vision, if this is something that's valuable, I'd like to find it a home and a proper owner. And given that it's a cross open source community collaborative effort, I mean, we could talk to the folks at OpenStack and Kubernetes to see what they want to do with things like this. But if this is something that's valuable, I'm happy to continue it as is. But obviously, I don't want it to be I want it to be under the right guidelines of these communities, so that it's transparent and people are getting value out of it. But at the moment, we can keep it as this kind of working group, and I'm happy to keep that cadence for a couple of weeks, if not months, if that's valuable.
I know one thing that would be helpful for me, that actually would have even been helpful before this call, is if we could sort of all pile on, whether that's an open Helm issue for overall OpenStack issues or whatever. And this doesn't have to take us away from us creating, you know, the individual issues that are important to us or bringing them into IRC or whatever, but just a living document that sort of encapsulates some of our issues as we go along. Because I know, for instance, that I've hit, you know, 15 different problems, but of course, like on this call, I can't think of all 15 of them. But if there's a place to just jot them, and some of them are not issue worthy because I don't even know whether, you know, it's user error or they're actual problems with, you know, this supporting what I'm trying to do. It'd be helpful to have these thrown into one place, and for some of it, we could actually even take some workload off of Helm, so we might be able to answer some of our own questions since we're all doing the same thing at the end of the day.
I'm happy to throw together. I'll send out the minutes from today and the agenda. I can put together another working doc, which is people can throw in, yeah, just general observances and or issues. If that's helpful for people, I'm happy to put that together.
Yeah. So on that point, we have a bit of an issue with OpenStack in general and the cross foundation collaboration, and I think we can solve that pretty easily as long as the Google Doc is posted to the OpenStack dev mailing list and anybody can participate. That's one of the rules we have to follow. It's called the 4 opens. So as long as you're okay with everybody taking a look at that doc, I think that works for OpenStack's case. That way we can, again, follow the rules that we have to live by.
Would it be, yeah, so this is going to happen quite a bit with OpenStack projects reaching out to other projects like Kubernetes and so forth. So maybe one person like a core on the team or a PTL would take that information and then send that to the OpenStack dev list. So it's, you know, it's on the OpenStack core development team. That work for you, Steve?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be complicated. It can just be an email. Here is a link to our working document between Helm and Cola Kubernetes or Cola, and that would be one way to approach the problem.
Yeah,
I would I would say that we can handle with the OpenStack, you know, say we can post the link wherever we need. However, the only question I'm having to you guys is, are you okay with random people just dropping in and working on the same doc? Because the way OpenStack does it, it will be pretty much anyone in the world who would want to join in, they will be able to join in. And if you are okay with that, just make globally writable document or however we do it, and we'll handle the, you know, OpenStack posting on our end.
I mean, so I have a suggestion, Lockie, and I think, you know, I think what would be good is to look at opportunities for CNCF and OpenStack Foundation interop, like Chris Hogue, right? Chris Hogue would be really interested in this, I believe. I think he'd be a really good contact to kind of wrap in. Because there is the OpenStack SIG under the Kubernetes umbrella, and that's good, but it's always been focused on Kubernetes running in tenant space, so things like load balancing and all that. This is a bit different. This is obviously, you know, OpenStack is an application and Kubernetes is first-class citizen, so it changes things. However, the OpenStack Foundation, I mean, if you talk to Chris or you talk to Denise or anyone on that side, they want to increase the interop for OpenStack and in between CNCF. So maybe we kind of rope them in and see where it goes. Maybe it, like you said, SIGs are really heavy. They're hard to support. There's a lot of preparation, and I completely agree with that. But maybe this forum kind of moves into that SIG a little bit, or you know, some of those, because that SIG is kind of quiet now that, you know, load balancing is there, and, you know, maybe as that quiets, then this ramps up or whatnot, and that's where that becomes. I don't know.
You also created a Slack channel for Cloud Kubernetes. This is another way just to, you know, to be able, so you guys could be able to pretty much reach us. But we had the problem with communication channels before, mostly due to Kubernetes, to Slack limitations. But yeah, I think it's a word to mention. Even to work between CNCF and Foundation to kind of find common ground in terms of communication channels, maybe to bring the communities together.
Yeah. My only statement on that is I think it has to come from you all, because there's power in your words. If I go, you have to say this is valuable. If I go over and say, I'm a charts maintainer, we want to do this, then it's not going to have any weight. But if we have PTLs from several projects and AT&T and SAP, that's going to have weight.
The thing is, the best effect will be if it comes from both of us. Like, we are OpenStack community, you guys are Kubernetes and CNCF community, and if we say like, hey guys, we want to talk to each other on a common ground, let's figure out how to make it technically between our, if we comes from both of us at the same time, both kind of foundations we are going to align one way or another.
Well, so, just to be clear, Michał, too, like, I don't want to put words in your mouth or whatever, but at least from my perspective, this is just a normal but yet very complex application that runs on Kubernetes. So, like, that's why, before this, we kind of postured close to CNCF and kind of follow the Kubernetes, community rules of engagement. But that's you guys. I mean, I know we're in Cola, and Steve is a core in Cola. Yay, today. That's awesome. It's just kind of, I don't know, just my thought.
Well, so just to dig into that a little bit. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Time check is, we can run another 5 minutes if everybody's okay, but I want to respect everybody's time.
I would say we should have a discussion on this topic alone, to be honest, quite frankly. Yeah. And we won't be able to handle anything in 5 minutes. So, yeah.
So let's wrap up. Thank you very much for joining. I will send out an email with the recording, and I will make the notes available for everybody. If we want to go and start that working document, whether it's an Etherpad or Google Docs, let's make sure we do it right, because I don't want to get any of us into any trouble, and I want things to be done right and transparent. But thank you very much for joining. I think it was a beneficial conversation. Happy holidays, and we'll figure out when the next one is. Is there any final parting words?
Just one thing about the Google. Yeah, this has been fantastic. One thing about the Google Docs, they're not accessible from China, and we have a whole lot of contributors in China, so that may be a problem. But Etherpad is accessible. So
how about we do it in Etherpad? If there's a tool that works, do you want to just create the Etherpad and then send it out to everybody on the email thread or the mailing list?
I think that Michał should probably do that, but that's very straightforward.
Yes, okay. I'll take an action on myself to handle this part from OpenStack side.
Okay, and if you want me to put the meeting notes in Etherpad, just give me a place to do it rather than Google Docs, because yes, I want people in China to have access should they want to take a look at it.
Cool.
Anything else?
Tomorrow at the public dev stand-up for Helm, Mirantis is doing a demo on their app controller orchestration plugged in as a backend to Helm. So that might be a good one to if you've got time to show up and watch that one, just to see some of the ways other people are attempting to integrate a backend into Helm that would do orchestration. I haven't seen this demo yet, so I'm actually really looking forward to it.
Will it be recorded, or do you know?
It should be recorded. I think all the dev ones are never recorded.
Okay.
Recorded.
I'm supposed to be on PTO, but maybe I can. Is it hour long, or
if it goes well, they will probably do it in the SIGAPS meeting in January, the 2nd or 3rd week of January.
Okay, I'll probably just wait for that.
They're an official SIGAPS project, and we're an official SIGAPS project. So any of the coordination stuff always gets demos there.
Cool, and again, I think we need to have the conversation of what the rules are around Kubernetes, because we haven't had that. So that's probably the next thing we need to do. The CNCF ecosystem. That's the next thing we need to do in our next meeting to close things out. Cool.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Lachlan, for organizing. It was awesome. And hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for joining and being time zone conducive. Have a happy holidays.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.